Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Before Coffee. It is our wacky and weird episode where we're covering all the wacky and weird things that are going out there, including ants and tortoises. Of course, we've got to have our animals section in here, even though some people might not consider ants to be animals and more like pests, am I right? And then, of course, we've got some other wacky things humans are doing out there to each other because... yeah, we just can't be normal for one day, can we? This is Before Coffee, the father and daughter comprehensive news of Planet Earth podcast, where we look up our stories 10 to 15 minutes before we started, and we haven't had any caffeine. We're reading these stories straight out of bed. You don't have to be in bed, though, but you should relax and get ready for a long show. Let's get into our headlines. I say long, it's only an hour, but for some people that's too long. They're like, oh, I have to sit down for an hour to listen to this? Today on Before Coffee. A beloved pet tortoise is reunited with its family weeks after disappearing in a Mississippi tornado. I'm just going to take a stroll into that tornado. And Harriet Dart complains opponent needs to wear deodorant during heavy defeat. She smells really bad.
And Roger in the United States, where doctors remove a pig kidney from a woman after a record 131 days, plus... Seattle, Michigan town moved 9,000 books one at a time.
UK Supreme Court rules woman means biological female, and everyone sighed disappointingly.
Belgian teens arrested for smuggling ants.
Records released into deaths of Gene Hackman and wife Arakawa. What were the weird things that were happening right before their deaths?
And it's National Wear Your Pajamas to Work Day. So I don't have work, but I have pajamas. So I'm halfway there. It's April 16th, 2025 on Before Coffee.
Yep, we're starting this Wacky and Weird Wednesday off with wacky and weird stories as it goes. And today you can also choose to be wacky and weird, I'm sure. Do weird things in your life. Maybe not anything that hurts people. That'd be nice.
Right.
Let's roll our segue wheel with a
that.
haiku. Write me a haiku about a pet tortoise and smelly tennis players. My first story is coming off of AP News by Sophie Bates. Myrtle, a cherished pet tortoise, has been reunited with his family in Mississippi weeks after disappearing during a deadly tornado outbreak in March. He's been through a lot, says Myrtle's grateful owner, Tiffany Emanuel. I know that he knows that just as much as I do, that every step of the way I'm going to be there helping him, caring for him, making sure he gets, the help he needs. The Emanuel family fled their home in rural Kokomo area as the tornado hit on March 15th. They returned to find two pine trees had fallen on top of their tortoise's backyard home. And Myrtle was missing! Weeks later, a neighbor found the injured tortoise. He was taken to the Central Mississippi Turtle Rescue for medical treatment on April 4th. Well, that's so cute. They have a Central Mississippi Turtle Rescue. We've got this place just for turtles. The lady who found the tortoise called me and she said she had run into the owners, said Chrissy Milbourne, organization's founder and co-director. She said, I think we're going to be calling you. So I was excited that the owners did call and say, yeah, that's my tortoise. Manuel's now nursing Myrtle back to health. It feels good to kind of have some kind of happy out of some sad and grief and loss, Manuel said. So make sure you guys know, watch your tortoises, because they might be having a little stroll in a tornado, and they're not supposed to do that. Pretty big tortoise. Huge. So I guess it didn't get flown away, or maybe it did get flown away a little bit. You'd think they could just hide in their shell, but shells are not impenetrable,
All right.
Do you have a haiku that quickly? It was a short story.
Okay, I have one. It's, where is my turtle? Was here a minute ago. It was tornado.
All right. For my next story, my short and sweet story, Harriet Dart calls her opponent smelly. This is in the British number 4 exited tournament in Rouen in a straight set. This is Harry Latham Coyle on The Independent. Harriet Dart British number 4 complained about her opponent's smell and said she needs to wear deodorant. In a curious, that's the word I'd use, a curious incident during a heavy defeat. Dart suffered a straight set exit from Rouen Open as Lois Boisson dominated a 6-0 and a 6-3 encounter. So she's just a bad loser, is what it sounds like. Yeah, I may have lost 6-0, but you smell bad. So, I mean, I feel bad for your boyfriend. Oh wow, watch out. Tensions are high. But an occasionally ill-tempered affair saw tensions inflame when the 28-year-old asked the umpire to instruct Boisson to deal with her body odor. Can you tell her to wear deodorant? Dart asked, in comments picked up on the microphones placed courtside early in the second set. Because the smell, Dart said. Can you tell her to wear deodorant? She smells really bad. Boisson took just 28 minutes to secure the first set in an impressive performance after the recent injury and issues. Dart also suffered a first-round defeat at Charleston Open at the end of March, her first clay court event of the season. She subsequently apologized on social media for her remarks. I want to apologize for what I said on court today, Dart wrote. I was a heat of the moment comment and I truly regret. That's not how I want to carry myself and I take full responsibility. I have a lot of respect for Lois and how she competed today. I'll learn from this and move forward. She had been part of the Great Britain squad that secured progress into the Billie Jean King Cup finals this weekend, featuring in the doubles rubber against Germany. Elena Svitolina is the top seed competing at the WTA event in Rome, with Dart's GB teammate Sonia Kartal seeded 8th after performing strongly in recent months to rise up the rankings. Elsewhere, Cameron Norrie suffered a first-round exit at Barcelona Open following a 6-7. Ooh, that's a close one. 6-4 and a 6-3 defeat. I think that just got to them in the end. With world number 27 Karen Chakhanov beating them. Okay. British number 3 Norrie, who was dropped to 88 because of those losses in the rankings, saved a set point en route to taking a tight opening set on a tiebreak. Having lost the opening 3 games of set 2, the 29-year-old qualifier looked on course for the last 16 after going 4-3 ahead at the break of a serve. But Russian Chakhanov immediately hit back, securing progression in 2 hours and 18 minutes to set up a meeting with Spaniard Juan Munar. Carlos Alcaraz, meanwhile, overcame a fighting performance from the American youngster Ethan Quinn to advance to the next round of 16. So there's also your tennis news in case you guys didn't already watch. You know, it's getting heated. They're at the King's Cup final, the Billie Jean King Cup finals. And,
all right.
Also smelly. It's getting smelly there and it's getting heated. Probably why it smells.
Smelly.
All that work to win.
Okay. Tennis. We're having 0 points is called love.
Yep.
No. Here's your haiku. I lost 6-love, but I have a good excuse. My opponent smells.
Really bad, yeah. I'm actually getting taken out, you know. I can't hit the ball. I can't see the fumes.
I'm not loving this.
Easy,
anyway.
Yeah. Easy excuse. All right, let me roll the wheel for my segue.
Talk about pig kidneys.
All right, I'll make up a hypothetical. Go for it.
All right. An Alabama woman, this is from Associated Press, an Alabama woman who lived with a pig kidney for a record 130 days, had the organ removed from her body as her body began rejecting it, and is back on dialysis, doctors announced Friday, a disappointment in the ongoing quest for animal to human transplants. No word on how the pig's doing. Anyway, probably breakfast by now. Tawana Looney is recovering well from the April 4th removal surgery at NYU Langone Health and has returned home to Gadsden, Alabama. In a statement, she thanked the doctors for the opportunity to be part of this incredible research. Though the outcome is not what anyone wanted, I know a lot was learned from my 130 days of the pig kidney, and this can help and inspire many others in their journey to overcoming kidney disease. Scientists are genetically altering pigs so their organs are more human-like to address the severe shortage of transplantable human organs. Why don't we just grow human organs, folks? I don't even know. I don't know what the ethical problem is. You're doing it with pigs. What, pigs don't count? Give me a break. More than 100,000 people are on the U.S. transplant list who need a kidney, and thousands die waiting. Before Looney's transplant, only 4 other Americans had received experimental transplants of gene-edited pig organs, 2 hearts and 2 kidneys that lasted no longer than 2 months. 2, 2, and 2. Those recipients who were severely ill before the surgery died. Now researchers are attempting transplants in slightly less sick patients like Looney. A New Hampshire man who received a pig kidney in January is faring well, and a rigorous study of pig kidney transplants is set to begin this summer. Take care of your kidneys, folks. Anyway, Chinese researchers also recently announced a successful kidney xenotransplant. Okay, maybe we'll explain what that means. Looney had been on dialysis since 2016 and didn't qualify for a regular transplant. Her body was abnormally primed to reject a human kidney, so she sought out a pig kidney. And it functioned well. She called herself Superwoman and lived longer than anyone with a gene-edited pig organ before, from her November 25th transplant until early April when her body began rejecting it. NYU xenotransplant pioneer Dr. Robert Montgomery, Looney's surgeon, said what triggered the rejection is being investigated, but he said Looney and her doctors agreed it would be less risky to remove a pig kidney than to try saving other higher riskier doses of anti-rejection drugs. We did the safe thing, Montgomery told the Associated Press. She's no worse off than she was before the xenotransplant, and she would tell you she's better off because she had 4.5-month break from dialysis. Shortly before rejection began, Looney had suffered an infection related to her prior time on dialysis, and her immune-suppressing anti-rejection drugs were slightly lowered, Montgomery said. At the same time, her immune system was reacting to after her transplant. Those factors may have combined to the damage to her new kidney, she said. Rejection is a common threat after transplants of human organs too, and sometimes costs patients their new organ. Doctors face a balancing act in tamping down patients' immune systems just enough to preserve the new organ while allowing them to fight infection. It's an even bigger challenge with xenotransplantation. With these pig organs have been altered to help prevent immediate rejections. Patients still require immune-suppressing drugs. Which drugs are best to prevent different later forms of rejection isn't clear, said Dr. Kawai of Massachusetts General Hospital, another xenotransplant pioneer. Different research groups are using different combinations, he said. We have more experience. We'll know what kind of immunosuppression is really necessary for xenotransplant, Kawai said. Montgomery said Louis' experience offers valuable lessons for the upcoming clinical trial. Making xenotransplant ultimately work is going to be one with singles and doubles, not swinging for the fence every time we do one of these, he said, with a baseball analogy. There's a story on the pig kidney being removed. That's your weird science snooze.
Weird science. Always pigs, oddly enough.
Yeah, and pigs are close enough to organ size for humans for this to occur. I think it's the size of the organs too. Unless you have a segue for that, I'll move on to the next story.
I do. Would you do this? Yes. Hypothetically, would you, if you had an organ missing, would you take the risk of taking another animal organ? Would you wait for an organ donor, right? Or would you just die?
I think I would take the pig. I would take the pig kidney.
Yeah, really? Oh, that's cool.
Because dialysis is a pain in the ass, they say. So you just sit there hooked up to a machine. I think you hooked up to a machine, but I think the pig thing, you just take drugs. You're not hooked up to a machine all day. Yeah. I think you gotta go 3 times a week or something for dialysis. It's ridiculous.
Well, I mean, that's what they said in the article, right? She was like, I feel like it was a win because I didn't have to be on dialysis for 4 months. That's how bad it is, right? Maybe, she was celebrating a break from dialysis.
And not everybody's like the lady we talked about yesterday who donated her sister's
uterus,
to her sister. Yeah, I mean, some people will donate a kidney to their sibling because, hey, I want
sometimes
my sibling
you're not a
more than I want
match.
my kidney.
Right? Like, for example,
Yeah, right.
Sometimes parents just aren't a good match and they can't give you their organs, and siblings as well. Siblings is a higher chance because they at least have the same genes spliced together, right? Your mom and your dad.
This woman in particular was high. She was rejecting a lot of organs, so. Well, she rejected this one too. And another weird story. This is good news, too, I guess. See how a Michigan town moved 9,100 books one by one to their new home. This is from AP News. AP. Residents of all ages in a small Michigan community formed a human chain and helped the local bookshop move each of its 9,100 books one by one to a new storefront about a block away. The book brigade of around 300 people stood in two lines running along a sidewalk in downtown Chelsea on Sunday, passing each title from Serendipity Books' former location directly to the corner shelves on the new building, down the block and around the corner on Main Street. It's a practical way to move the books, but also a way to everybody to have a part, said Michelle Tuplin, the store's owner, said. As people passed the books along, they said, I have not read this, and that's a good one. Momentum had been building since Tuplin announced the move in January. It became so buzzy in town, so many people wanted to help, she said Tuesday. Tuplin said the endeavor took just under 2 hours, much shorter than hiring a moving company to box and unbox the thousands of titles. The brigade even put the books back on the shelves in alphabetical order. Now Tuplin hopes to have the new location open within 2 weeks. The bookstore has been in Chelsea, about 60 miles west of Detroit, since 1997. Tuplin has been the owner since 2017, has three part-time employees. About 5,300 people call Chelsea home, and residents described it as a place where neighbors help neighbors. It's a small town, and people just really look out for each other, said Cassie Friss, 32, who grew up in Chelsea and has worked at the bookstore for a little over a year. Anywhere you go, you are going to run into someone you know and who knows you. It's going to ask you about your day. Friss said Sunday's Book Brigade reminder of how special this community is. So there's your cool story about hey, let's go help move a bookstore, and all you gotta do is stand there and pass book from one hand to another. That's all you gotta do. And then he's moving on down the line, and nobody had to do anything. You gotta be sitting in a chair and do it even.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyway, there's your story. There's your weirdness.
Would you rather put a bunch of, get 10 books and move them, or actually do one by one? Because I think I'm so impatient, I would just actually grab, I can fit 5 books, give them to me, and I just waddle.
Yep, they would have kicked you out of the line. They would have said, you can't be in.
I feel like my arms would get so tired just passing a book for, hours on end. I don't know.
I don't think it would. You might get blisters, maybe. Blisters.
Oh, no. Gotta wear my book gloves so I don't get blisters.
On my thumb. Medic. All right,
that's what would happen to you. You would sit in a chair and get blisters on your thumb if you're passing books for hours on end.
Yeah, they have to wear gloves. Get your gloves out.
I want to get a paper cut. Yeah, exactly.
My book passing gloves are right here.
Okay.
My book passing gloves.
My book glove.
Next story.
All right, let me roll the segue wheel.
You can read the story. These are
reminds you of a song.
Reminds me of a song. That's always the one.
Right. So this is my political, but also wacky news story because I have to talk about it because I saw it happen today. Judgment has been made in the United Kingdom on what woman means. And they have decided it means a biological female. So somebody with the XX chromosomes and tits and probably a vagina and uteruses and all the people who don't have those, you're not a woman anymore. Britain's highest court ruled today that legal definition of woman is based on the biological sex of the person. The unanimous decision of this court is that the terms Women and Sex in the Equality Act of 2010 refer to a biological woman and biological sex. Patrick Hodge, Deputy President of the Supreme Court, said he delivered his judgment today on the 15th. Oh, sorry, not the 15th. 16th of April. It will be seen as a landmark victory for the gender-critical feminist, or what I like to call haters, who campaigned to have long argued that biological sex is immutable. Yeah, that's right. Biological sex is a fact, and nothing ever happens in the world that changes people's biological sex or causes people to be born different. That we're all one or two. Yeah, the binary. I love the binary. Anyways, this is a blow for transgender rights activists. The ruling could have far-reaching implications for the provision of single-sex spaces and other gender-specific public services across Scotland, England, and Wales. The UK government said the ruling had brought clarity and confidence for women and service providers such as hospitals, refugees, and sports clubs. I think nobody gives a shit. I'm not sitting there going, oh boy, I hope my women's only chess team doesn't have a trans person in it. I don't care. You should be thinking on what you're doing, not hoping there's not a
it's not fair. You know it's not fair? I used to play basketball against guys that were 6'11". Yeah. That wasn't fair. They were much taller than me and could dominate.
Everyone knows that people above 6 foot are no longer men. They're actually aliens. So.
Right. That's unfair. He had an unfair advantage. He was taller. It's not fair. I told the ref every time down the court, it's not fair. He's taller. Anyway.
I just think people who are freaking out about, like, is there a man secretly here are just too paranoid. Like, don't go out in public, okay? Oh boy, out there isn't a man here. What they consider men, right? They consider trans women to be men in disguise. To get them, the boogeyman under the bed. Anyways, single-sex spaces are protected in law and will always be protected by this government, a spokesperson said in a statement following the ruling. Kishwalker Faulkner, chair of the Equalities Watchdog, Equality and Human Rights Commission, EHRC, my favorite commission, said the judgment had addressed challenges faced by those seeking to maintain single-sex spaces and the rights of same-sex attracted persons to form associations. Of course, that also means that if you even look like a man, you might be kicked out of these supposedly safe sex spaces because, as anybody who's known a lesbian knows, if there's a butch lesbian walking in the bathroom, wait, that's a boy, because I can only see short hair and think of men. Nobody else can have short hair. Cutting hair is a man thing. Or long hair, for your case, right? Long hair is a woman thing. You're a woman now because you have long hair. That's how it works. Anyways, these are how simple these people are. The long ruling legal challenge was brought by the For Women Scotland campaign group, who argue sex is biological, binary, and can't be changed against the Scottish government. I don't think anyone's ever said sex wasn't biological. But it's definitely not binary. I'll refute that. It can't be changed yet. As far as we know, we can't change our genetics after we've been born. But it's definitely not binary because there's a lot of people out there with crazy genetics out there. The case dates back to 2018 when Scottish administration, led by the then First Minister Nicola Sturgeon, passed legislation to establish gender quotas to get more women serving on public boards. You need to at least have 5 women per 2 men or something. That would be crazy. 5 women per 2 men. That would be insane. What an insane ratio. Anyways, it was eventually amended to count trans women with gender recognition certificates. So people who went through all the effort of saying, I'm really a woman, please, 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 can you just see me as a woman that I am? And stop calling me a man. They went through all like the hoops, right? But these are just people who are trying to get you, right? These are men who are trying to get you by going through 20 hoops to get this gender confirmation recognition certificate. Anyways, Scottish courts ruled and then upheld in the Scottish government's favor that sex is not limited to biological or birth sex and must include those in possession of gender recognition certificates, or GRCs. But that was challenged in the Supreme Court by the campaigners, and in its ruling today, the country's highest court said the meaning of the term sex, man and woman in the UK's Equality Act must refer to biological sex, not gender, which, as we all know, is a social construct we invented to put people in boxes, with any other interpretation deemed incoherent and impracticable. The summary of the court ruling read, Therefore, a person with a gender recognition certificate in the female gender does not come within the definition of woman under the Equality Act 2010, and the statutory guidance issued by the Scottish Minister is incorrect. Trans rights campaigners had warned that if the court deemed a gender recognition certificate insufficient to change one's sex in the eyes of the Equality Act, then transgendered people would lose protection they have against discrimination. Yeah, they basically made that entire certificate useless. In the eyes of the law, maybe not. In the eyes of the people, it's pointless now. And laws are great and everything, but everyone knows that it's the zeitgeist that determines what actually is going on, okay? So if everyone agrees trans people aren't real, guess they're not real now, you know? Following the ruling, Scottish Greens MSP Maggie Chapman warned the ruling was deeply concerning for human rights and a huge blow to some of the most marginalized people in society. It would remove important protections and leave many trans people deeply anxious and worried about how their lives will be affected and about what will come next, she said. Hodge stressed the ruling should not be seen as a triumph of one group over another, even though we know people who hate other people, bigots, will always see any inkling towards their side as a win and that everyone else is a loser. So it will be seen as the what were they called again? Gender critical feminists are going to be like, yeah, we won! Trans people aren't real! No matter what this dude says. Yeah. Oh, it's not one group didn't win. This isn't us versus them. It is an us versus them. It's been an us versus them for 20 years.
The Harry Potter lady. Yeah. The Harry Potter lady's all excited.
Yeah. Not only against discrimination, though, the protected characteristic of gender reassignment, but also against the direct discrimination and harassment substance in their required gender. Opposition Conservative Party leader Kemi Badenoch, a former equalities minister, described the ruling as a victory for all women who faced personal abuse or lost their jobs for stating the obvious. Did anybody lose their job for saying, that's a man? Fire them. What are the... This is the problem with people... This is the problem with... what is it called? Marginalization. Populism. Let's make up shit that happened and see, look, there were victims, you see? These fake victims that don't exist.
Everybody's a martyr now. I'm a martyr.
Yeah. I got fired for saying that woman isn't a woman. Actually, you got fired because you stole people's food out of the fridge for the 50th time. It had nothing to do with that. Anyway, saying trans women are women was never true in fact, and now isn't true in law either, she added, just to really beat down the people that are already down on the down. Just beat them down. But I will continue to say trans women are women. It is even in my welcome to the chat room message on my stream, so I will not take that away because it's true. And trans men are men too. Reminder: this also affects trans men. They're always focusing on the trans women, but they're never looking at the trans men who are. What are they supposed to do? Are they supposed to go to the men's bathroom or the women's bathroom? You know, because if they go to the women's bathroom, they are men. They look like men. So you're a man in the bathroom. Actually, I was assigned XX at birth when I was born, so I'm supposed to be in here. But you look like a man, and now I feel like you're going to assault me. You just can't win. And that's the problem. We're forcing trans people to be put into the private sphere. They're not allowed to exist in public. They must hide away in a corner from society so we don't have to think about them because it's too hard. Yeah.
Only people who care about this are insecure.
Yep, 100%. So, and also, reminder that any anti-trans stuff is being used against actual cis women like me, right? There's people out there who maybe don't fit the general look of a woman. Maybe they have strong jaws or, you know, hairy faces. You're a man now! Even though you have XX chromosomes, according to this law, right? You're a man now because we're still gonna look at what you look like, right? This is all based on what you look like. You can't see people's genetics just standing there.
That's what they're gonna go to next. Yeah. They're gonna make sure to examine you every
You have to get a blood print before you go to the bathroom, yeah. XX, you may enter.
So this reminds me of a song. Reminds me of a song. Rebel Rebel by David Bowie.
Rebel, rebel.
You got your mother in a whirl. She's not sure if you're a boy or a girl. That's the first lines of it.
But she still loves you, right?
It's about. Well, it's a song about a trans person.
Yeah.
That David Bowie wrote. You want me to sing it? Rebel, rebel. I'm not going to sing it.
No, it does.
I love you so.
All right, let's roll our next wheel as you slowly disconnect right now.
Okay. As I slowly sing myself into oblivion, we're going to talk about. What's the wheel say? The wheel spin. Hello?
The wheel said non sequitur. Sorry, you're disconnecting a little bit.
This is from AP News. Belgian teen the 5,000 smuggled condom. That's what I want to know. 4,020, 4,100. Anyway, Belgian teens arrested with 5,000 smuggled, says Kenya warns of changing trafficking trends. Evelyn Mosami from AP News. That's reminding AP News for story. This is from Nairobi, Kenya. 2 Belgian teenagers were charged Tuesday with wildlife piracy after
wildlife piracy.
After they were found with thousands of ants packed in test tubes in what Kenyan authorities said was part of a trend in trafficking smaller and lesser known species. Lornoy David and 2 19-year-olds who were arrested April 15th with 5,000 ants at a guest house appeared distraught during their appearance before a magistrate in Nairobi and were confronted by relatives. They told the magistrate they were collecting the ants for fun, did not know it was illegal. They were criminal Gang and Vietnamese Du Nguyen were also charged with illegal trafficking in the same room following their arrest while in possession of 400 ants. I'm the ant counter for the Nairobi court. What a great job. The Kenya Wildlife Service said the 4 men were involved in trafficking the ants to markets in Europe and Asia. The species were included in Nestor cephaloides, a distinctive large and red-colored harvester ant native to East Africa. The illegal export of the ants was not only undermines Kenya's sovereign rights over its biodiversity, but also deprives local communities and research institutions of potentially ecological and economic benefits. You're stealing our ants! Damn it! KWS said in a statement. Anyway, Kenya has in the past fought against the trafficking of body parts of large wild animals such as elephants, rhinos, and pangolins, among others, but the case against the 4 men represent a shift in trafficking trends from iconic large mammals to lesser known yet ecological critical species. Belgian National, we're talking about picture captions. The 2 Belgians were arrested in Kenya's Nakuru County, which is home to various national parks. The 5,000 ants were found in a guest house where they were staying. The ants are kicking back in a guest house.
Yeah, they're just like leaning down, drinking some cocktails, you know?
Yeah, that's right. What do ants drink, I wonder? Bloody Marys, I think, maybe.
No, they drink sugar water. That's what they drink.
5,000, yeah. The 5,000 ants were found in a guest house, and they were staying and were packed in 2,244 test tubes that had been filled with cotton wool to enable the ants to survive for months. The other 2 men were arrested in Nairobi, where they were found to have 400 ants in their apartments. Kenyan authorities valued the ants at 1 million shillings, or $7,700. 1 million shillings sounds impressive, doesn't it? The prices for ants can be vary greatly according to the species in the market. Philip Moruti, a vice president for conservation in Africa Wildlife Foundation in Nairobi, said ants played a role in enriching soils, enabling germination, and providing food for species such as birds. We got a lot of picture captions I'm not going to read. The thing is, when you see a healthy forest like Nagong Forest, you don't think about what is making it healthy. It is a relationship all the way from the bacteria to the ants to the bigger things, he said. Maruthi warned of a risk of trafficking species and exporting diseases to Let's do that again. Maruthi warned of the risk of trafficking species and exporting diseases to the agriculture industry and of the destination countries. Even if there is trade, it should be regulated and nobody should be taking our resources. All right, there's your ant story. The people trying to steal ants. Never thought it would come to that, but there you are. People are crazy.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
non sequitur.
Non sequitur, okay. I have a lot of ants in my house recently. Yeah. They've been crawling up my legs, and I've been trying to make sure that there's no food because I'm not sure where they're coming from. I'm hoping it's just the cat, the cat rolls around in the dirt and then brings them in. And yeah, I had a question, which was,
I put on ant
why
plates.
do people not like ants? Is it just because they're annoying, or do they actually cause irreparable damage to your food stores or something? Maybe they spread disease. I'm not sure. Why did ants become pests?
You just don't crawl over your bed,
Yeah.
Right? I think the problem here, and I think I've made an ant bait with borax sugar. And borax with the sugar, and the ants don't know the difference because they're nice in low water. And of course, borax kill them, and I'll take them back to their nest and kill the queen, so you won't have a whole shitload of ants all over your house. Anyway, there's your little house tip
on ants. Yeah. All right. I roll the wheel for our culture segment, which is weird. It's not good news, but if you're more curious in the weeks before Gene Hackman and Arakawa's death, this is the story for you. You have to give me a bad pun. So hopefully there's something in here that you can make light of. This is by David Morquand and AP on Euronews Culture. Rat nest. Dead rodents were discovered on Hackman's property after the actor's wife, Betsy Arakawa, died of hantavirus, and it's thought she died more than a week before her husband. Okay, so everyone thought he was dead and then she died after, but it was the other way around. She died and then he died after. Authorities have released a trove of records related to the deaths of Gene Hackman and his wife, Betsy Arakawa, including a lengthy investigation report detailing some of the last emails, phone calls, and internet searches by Arakawa, indicating that she had been scouring for information on flu-like symptoms and breathing techniques. She couldn't breathe. Arakawa died in February of hantavirus pulmonary syndrome, HPS, a rare rodent-borne disease. Hackman is believed to have died about a week later of heart disease with complications from Alzheimer's disease. Maybe forgot to take his medicine and she wasn't there to help him. The partially mummified remains of Hackman, 95, and Arakawa, 65, were found in their Santa Fe home on the 26th of February when maintenance and security workers showed up at the home and alerted the police. Photos, hours of the footage, and documents were made public yesterday on the 15th of April after a recent court order that mandated any depictions of the deceased couple to be blocked from view. Yeah, we don't want to see dead bodies here. No, thank you. Respect the people who passed away, please. According to the lengthy investigative report, a review of Arakawa's computer showed she was actively researching medical conditions related to COVID-19 and flu-like symptoms between 8 and 12 February. The searches included questions about whether COVID-19 could cause dizziness or nosebleeds. If you're getting dizziness and nosebleeds, go to the doctor. Goodness. I wonder how long she was sick with it, or if it's a quick-acting virus. So she had it for 2 days, and then she died. She also mentions in an email to her massage therapist that Hackman had woken up 11th February with the flu or cold-like symptoms, but that a COVID test was negative, and she would have to reschedule her appointment for the next day out of abundance of caution. Well, at least they didn't spread the virus around. That's nice. Hackman's pacemaker showed an abnormal heart rhythm on the 18th of February, the day he likely died. An environmental assessment of Hackman's property by state health personnel found rodent feces in several outbuildings along with live traps on the property. So they knew they had a rat problem. Rat nests and dead rodents were found on the property, but there was no evidence of rodent activity inside the home. The New Mexico Department of Health said the hantaviruses are spread by saliva droppings in the urine of infected rodents. And as somebody who had pet rats, which are not the same as wild rats, fancy rats is what they're called, they leave a pee trail when they walk. That's how rats work, because a lot of them can't see very well, and that's how they're kind of like ants in a way. They leave a scent trail so they can get back and know where they've been. And so there's definitely, if there were any rodents around or inside the house, they were leaving urine everywhere. HPS is often transmitted through air when people sweep out sheds or clean closets where mice appear to be. Oh, that's good to know. That's good to know. Make sure to, wear a face mask when you're cleaning out your mice sheds and closets, or by eating food contaminated with mouse droppings. It is not transmissible from person to person. Okay, so then I guess, well, no, because Hackman could have still gotten the disease. He was living in the same house. Investigators found one of the couple's dogs sitting in the bathroom near Arakawa's body. They then walked to the other side of the house where Hackman was found dead. Two totally separate areas of the house, an officer comments. It's strange, another responds. The officers worried about a possible gas leak or carbon monoxide poisoning. Opened doors and windows around the house. Subsequent testing showed there were no leaks. The footage showed them going through the rooms of the home and finding nothing out of the ordinary and no signs of forced entry. One of the couple's 3 dogs was also found dead in a crate in the bathroom closet near Arakawa, while the 2 other dogs were found alive. State veterinary lab tied the dog's death to dehydration and starvation. Oh, that's awful, but makes sense. They were stuck in a crate in the closet, so they couldn't get out. And unfortunately, it was probably one of those. This is why I don't want to create if I had a dog, I never want to put it in a box. What if not that I would forget, but what if something happens to me? Nobody gets my dog out of the box. I'm sure if more people checked on these guys, maybe the dog would have survived, but sadly, it sat there and starved to death next to Arakawa's body. So, we learned some valuable lessons here. Watch out for rodent feces. This is why rats are considered a pest, right? They can spread disease, and their fleas on the back of rats are what caused the Black Plague, for example. But it's very sad that even people who I would assume are wealthy, right? They could afford to go to the doctor. The American health system kind of forces you in a way to go on WebMD first before you bother with your co-pays, right? Going to the doctor to find out what you're sick with. And also, it sounds like she was worried about infecting others. So I think it could have also been the result of not wanting to affect others, right? I don't want to go to the hospital and infect people with this mysterious disease. I don't know what it is. Sadly, she wouldn't have infected anyone unless she, brought some rat feces with her, I guess. But there's the weird results of the investigation into the deaths. I think we can say with finality here that we know what happened. And may they rest in peace now.
All right.
Any bad puns about rats?
Well, she would have called the doctor, gone to the doctor.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Squeak up. Squeak up.
That's a good one. Yeah, she told her massage therapist, which is like, unfortunately, massage therapists are not doctors.
Yeah, I'm like, what? And he was a caregiver, right?
Yeah.
So she should have definitely. That's a definite twist on that situation. I didn't think would have been the actual case, right? She died first.
Yeah, everyone thought it was the other way around because. I mean, what did you say? You thought she
and the dog
took some pills and OD'd or something? That's one thing.
Found him dead and OD'd or something. That's the old thing. Yeah. Okay. She wasn't this terrible one who Alzheimer's. Probably never found her, right? He's
Yeah.
like, where am I? Where am I? Where is me? Anyway, okay, it's terrible. This day in history. This day.
You're kind of disconnecting. Maybe you can disconnect and reconnect.
Did you spin the wheel?
Yeah, I did. I got a limerick.
I'm sorry. Disconnected. What'd you say?
Yeah, limerick. I got limerick. So go on.
Limerick. All right, limerick. That's a tough one. It's always a limerick on this day in history. That's a tough one. 1646, architect Jules Hardouin Mansart, who redesigned and expanded the Palace of Versailles, was born in Paris on this day in 1646. In 1746, 100 an English force under Charles Edwards at of Culloden the Jabba to restore the Stuarts to England's throne. So this was the Battle of Culloden took place to this day in 1746. And basically, if your name was Stuart, you were marked for get the hell out of Scotland at that. That's how we got the United States.
Yeah.
1755. Elizabeth V. Lebrun was born in Paris, known for her portrait of Queen Margaret before she lost her head. 1838, French forces occupying Veracruz, Mexico during the Pastry War. Conflict began after a French pastry cook living near Mexico City claimed that Mexican army officers had damaged his restaurant. I wonder if this led to Cinco de Mayo.
No, I don't think so.
Right? That was the Battle of Veracruz. Why wouldn't you think so? May 5th is a couple of weeks from now. Why wouldn't this have led to Cinco de Mayo? I think
coincidence, maybe.
I don't think it's a coincidence at all. It's a Battle of Veracruz. It happened in Veracruz, and that's where Cinco de Mayo took place. So I'm going to go with that. In 1908, Natural Bridges National Monument was formally established in southeastern Utah. You think I'm ridiculous? What's ridiculous is a pastry war. That's what's ridiculous. I'm not ridiculous.
That's
pastry
perfect for whacking weird, yeah.
I'm not ridiculous. I'm not the ridiculous one here, thinking that let's take for the Mayo. 1970.
Cinco de Mayo was against the Spanish. That's why I think it's ridiculous.
Exile. It was against the French. It was against the French.
I'm pretty sure Cinco de Mayo is the celebration of Mexican independence from Spain. Pretty sure that's what it was about.
It was a battle it was an individual battle they won against the French. You can look it up. It has nothing to do with independence. It's not the Independence Day. A lot of people think it. Cinco de Mayo. Look it up right now, man. Cinco de Mayo is annual celebration that celebrates Mexico victory over the Second French Empire at the Battle of Pueblo in 1862, led by General Ignacio Sosa. So it was not a result of the Pastry War because that took place in 1838. So
yeah, I mean, I was already saying that, so it doesn't matter.
Well, you got one part right, but you got the part about Spain wrong.
I thought it was independence against Spain.
The French, like I said.
Well, unfortunately, we did not cover Mexican history in school. 15
the Battle of Puebla.
U.S. histories,
Battle of Puebla, not Veracruz. So I got that wrong. Don't know my Mexican history. Sue me. I don't know my Mexican history. 1917. Vladimir Lenin ended his 17-year exile and returned to Russia to form a provisional government, which lasted quite a while. A provisional government. 1922, British author Kingsley Amis was born. He created his first novel, Lucky Jim, a comic figure that became a household world of Great Britain in the 1950s. 1943, Swiss chemist Albert Hofmann discovered the psychedelic properties of LSD, a drug he had first synthesized in 1938. So here's the guy, Albert Hofmann, who's the first guy who flat out in 1938. So there you go. Good for him. 1947 of American basketball player Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Yeah.
5 NBA championships with the Los Angeles Lakers. He won the NBA championship with the Milwaukee Bucks first, you piece of crap. Well, Britannica, screw you. You overlooked his championship with the Milwaukee Bucks because why? Because you're an incompetent research engine. Why are you overlooking his one championship with Milwaukee? Milwaukee doesn't win a lot of championships, man. Jesus. What a shitty autobiography that was. That pisses me off. Why are you ignoring his championship with Milwaukee? Idiots. I'm gonna
Reminder, Rogers from Wisconsin, okay? So he has a bias.
That pisses me off. Oh yeah, you didn't matter until 1980. He was in the league for 10 years before that. Jesus. Anyway, 1948, in order to restore the economy of Europe in World War II, 16 European countries formed the Organization for European Economic Cooperation, later known as the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or the... There's no nice acronym for this one. I like NATO. The OEECO or the OECD. 1962, American journalist Walter Cronkite became the anchor. Walter Cronkite became the anchor for the CBS Evening News, a position he held for nearly 2 decades, during which time he became known as the most trusted man in America. That's how he talked. 2003, Michael Jordan retired, basketball player. People consider one of the best of all time. I think it's a silly argument. Anyway, he retired at the age of 40. He played his last game in the National Basketball Association 22 years ago today. It hardly seems possible. 2007, one of the deadliest mass shootings in the United States. 33 people, including the shooter, were killed at Blacksburg, Virginia, and the campus of Virginia Tech. I remember that. I was on travel when it happened. I was in Florida. 2014, the South Korean ferry seawall. This is a tragic day in history. The South Korean ferry seawall traveling from Incheon to Jeju capsized and sank, killing 304 people, most of whom were high schoolers. So another tragedy on this day. April 16, known for tragedy. 1912.
Yeah, something I didn't
Harriet
even know
Quimby
happened. It's like a huge tragedy that I never heard of until 2020, I think.
Oh, yeah? Okay. Well, this day in history also. Harriet Quimby's flight across the English Channel. On this day in 1912, American aviator Harriet Quimby became the first woman to fly across the English Channel, gliding her French Blériot monoplane through the heavy overcast from Dover, England to Hardelot, France. Our feature biography, Peter Ustinov, British actor, author, and director, born April 16, 1921 in London. It says his birthday. He would be 104 today. He died March 28, 2004 at the age of 82 in Grenadier, Switzerland. Other birthdays today. Benedict the 16th. Oh,
because it's French, probably.
Benedict the 16th. Yeah, okay. Benedict the 16th birthday. Born 1927. That makes him 98 if he was around. Dusty Springfield, British singer, born 1939. Marguerite II, Queen of Denmark, born 1940. We covered Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And it's also Bill Belichick's birthday, American football coach Bill Belichick. Also known for cheating and for, well, let's see, what is he today? 73. I believe his girlfriend is like 25 or something. He's like a really super young girlfriend. Crazy, gross. Right? Yeah, no shit. 73 years old. And I guess smoke them if you got them, but still. Geez, dude. Robbing the cradle and then some. Young enough to be his great-great-grandchild. And what other days is it today? It is National Wear Your Pajamas to Work Day. National Eggs Benedict Day. Eggs Benedict. National Healthcare Decision Day. Oh boy, it's always a decision, isn't it?
Make sure you choose the right person to protect your insurance.
Well, healthcare. And National Bean Counter Day, it's the day after tax day in the United States, is your bean counters.
Okay.
How much beans we got left? We got 4 beans. Yay, 4 beans for next year.
I totally forgot people used to use beans to count. I totally forgot it, man. That's such an old method.
National Banana Day and National Pathway Day. So there's all your days for today. All your mistakes, all your spins of the wheels, your mispronunciations, your global ridiculousness for Wednesday, April 16th, 2025 on Before Eggs Benedict and bananas.
And bananas. I love bananas.
Well, it's a National
Also, I do
Banana
want to
Day.
point out the National Pathway Day is they're celebrating the different pathways or academies people take to get to their careers. And actually, I went to a career and technical education institute during high school, right? That's where I learned how to do editing and filming and all sorts of voiceover, all the things I know to do for this stream today is thanks to a career and technical education community college and stuff like that. So thanks, Pathway. Happy Pathway Day. Celebrate those public schools that teach you careers like becoming a nurse or becoming a dentist. We had that at my school. Dentistry, making cars, stuff with plants, all sorts of things. Cooking, of course. Anyways, no international UN observance today. Here is our limerick. As Lenin reclaimed his place by the throne, the people rejoiced, yet unaware of the unknown. LSD's mystic sway would soon lead astray and bring forth a new era of change unsown. And so all sinking a disaster so grand, claimed the lives of the innocent hand in hand, with parents' despair and nation's prayer for justice and peace on that bloody strand. For strand is also known as a beach in Dutch, so that was a cute little double entendre, I guess, there. Bloody strand.
Right,
Anyways, there's my limerick. This has been Allison from the Netherlands and Roger from the East Coast of the US as we tie off another wacky and weird Wednesday to remind you all that we're all just trying our best out here and we're all doing wacky and weird things to each other, and sometimes for good and sometimes for bad. We will see you tomorrow for our Thursday 13, where we drop a list of 13 things and we argue about whether or not they deserve to be on there, or hey, you missed this one, or I don't agree with that one shouldn't be there. And we don't know what the list is yet, and that's all part of the fun. So if you're not subscribed or not have your notifications on, make sure you do that so you can come back tomorrow, see what list we've drawn up for you that day. But without further ado, let's go to our very short but wacky mic drop moment. Here we go. Yep, that's totally yours. You won. Everyone's like, what the fuck is this clown doing? Oh my god.
And he drops it. Look at Trump. Trump looks over at him. Look. Boy, Vance is an idiot. He's Sarah Palin with whiskers. And look, they take it apart. And he holds up half of the trophy. Look at me.
Why did you need to lift the trophy? You didn't win.
No, he's from Ohio, and Ohio State won a championship.
What weird.
It's the trophy presentation for the college football championship.
No, I'm thinking the thing in the back, the jersey is what I think is weird.
Oh, it's 47 for Trump because he's 47.
Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notify buttons. And follow our other channels, Toxic Alley, History of Gravy, and Scratchy Old Records.